Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, but nothing's actually changing? You're putting in the work, you're reading the books, you're setting your goals, but nothing's actually moving the needle. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you lack clarity, my friend. It's that your brain is still playing an old identity loop. The version of you who plays small, who delays, and who doubts. And here's the truth. Until you change the identity behind the action, the results are still the same. But the good news is identity isn't permanent. It's programmable, it's rewirable, and in this episode, we're going to show you exactly how. Welcome to Embers Rising, where we explore how to live with clarity, courage, and momentum. I'm your host, Wendy J, here with my partner in both the wild and work, Mr.
David Tucker.
There we go.
Co-host. We're also partners in hats. You'll notice just about every episode
It's hat day.
Is hat day, especially when you've got this going on with your hair. All right. I shouldn't even have shown that because I have vacated the hair salon for quite a while because we've been so busy.
Well, together we have learned that real mountains aren't out there, which are the ones we're running up. They're actually the ones that we climb inside ourselves. And today we're talking about something that really silently shapes every decision we make, you make, every risk that you avoid, every dream that you delay, and that is called identity. Okay? Because if your inner narrative says, I'm not that kind of person who, it doesn't matter how hard you try. You're always self-correct back to the old version of you. But the story can change, my friend. And when it does, you actually change everything.
I love it. I think we have to put a disclaimer in this one, and that is we're not doctors. We are not counselors. We're probably going to scratch the surface here today.
Yeah.
And the fact is we're talking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart because my dad spent his entire life on this very topic. And so I'm going to bring some of that in today for sure. But just open your mind because this podcast will have zero impact on you, like all podcasts and things you hear, unless you choose to accept and make a change, make a decision, because it happens inside of you, not just from listening.
Well, with that said, Dave, if you're here with us right now, it's not by accident. You're the kind of person who's ready to grow, not just by consuming more content, but by becoming someone new with us. And you're probably already felt it, the friction between your old self and the new self that you're trying to become. But that tension means that you're actually in the right place. And we see you. We're super grateful that you're here and part of our community. We also love hearing what's landing for you right now. Your comments, your DMs, the stories that you're sharing out there actually fuel this show. And so please keep them coming. And here are actually a couple recent ones that I just pulled today, Dave. And I'm going to pop them up here and share them. This is so fun.
I love it. Is it my fan club?
Yes, it is.
All right,
there are some comments here. So we had a post that went out that's called, "The key to changing your life isn't more knowledge, it's execution. Action is where the real power lies. It couldn't tie better than what we're talking about right now, talking about identity loops. Empower, muse, repel, maybe. Knowledge without execution is just potential. Whew, felt that in my soul. Timeless Trailblazer says, yes, words without action are useless. Gan Lloyd says, this is such a great post. Love it. And then I want to say we had, let me try to see if I had any. Okay, so Dave, I think that you were talking about running ads and running ads wrong. So this doesn't quite tie into identity loops, but I do want to do some shout outs here. So Cassandra Hines says, strategic visibility that turns into sales. Love this. Itza.lyrazadg says, insightful. Our.whereabouts says, love this analogy. Social with Glams says, love this faucet analogy. David, I'm sure doing amazing things. I'm sure you're doing amazing things. I think is what she means. Justin and Jess _ says, love the fact that the number of views doesn't matter, but rather who is viewing it. Isn't that a great perspective? You know all about that, Dave. Natty _ creator says, the faucet analogy hits home big time. It's not about doing more. It's about doing it right.
Yeah.
So I think you know exactly what they're talking about.
Awesome, awesome. And the thing is about identity loops and identity and self when it comes to advertising, that's all I work on, right? Like that's all I work on all day long is trying to penetrate into that story of who you think you want to become or who you are now and prying it open. And that's called marketing, right? Like if you're really good at marketing, you're really good at psychology and thinking about what the other person's needs are, not what you want to sell, but how you can present it in a way. So I could probably do a several day episode on that, but I won't.
That's really good. We should think about that one. Now that we've shared some love from our community, I want to take us on a little peek before we dive into this behind the curtain, pull it back. Let's share what we've been unfolding in our lives right now. It's time to get into it. David, give us an update. What's going on with your training? Because by the time this comes out, this episode, you will have just a couple of weeks till
Ironman. So I think we're 18 days away from Ironman. This weekend was wetsuit testing, open water swim. I'll share something that even Wendy J doesn't know. I guess she's going to find out about it when she hears this podcast. But first of all, I got a wetsuit, and when I tried it on, I was pretty sure it was too tight. But hey, I figured it's the right size. Once it gets wet, it'll loosen up. I remember that from surfing. And with surfing, you sort of sit for a long period of time, so you're not moving your arms. Anyway, I got in the water and I panicked. And it's been a long, long time since I have panicked in the water. And so panic, I don't know if you know, is when you completely go white and your heart rate like starts to race and your body says, we need to jump out of the situation. Part of the identity loop, part of the survival loop too. But it was a proof that, no matter how proficient you are in what you do, life comes up, things happen, and you got to deal with it. And so we went on and swam the rest of the day, and I laughed it off. And I got a new wetsuit, by the way. So I also realized that I'm not prepared for the swim in Ironman. The pool is a little different. So now I've got to swim open water every other day for the next 3 weeks, 3 weeks-ish. So I'm looking forward to that because now the wetsuit fits and it's beautiful at sunrise to go out to the lake and swim.
Yeah, we found a great spot by the lake. It's awesome. It's like perfect for the buoys and where to launch at. It's fantastic. But sometimes you just don't know what you don't know until you actually try it. And it's like my first day of trail running in the wrong shoes, and getting blisters and going through that process for over a year, trying to figure it out. Sometimes you just don't know. And I remember Dave was like, hey, my goggles keep filling up, but I have to wear like a swim cap. You don't normally wear a swim cap. Right. And you're trying to figure out like, how do I
But I'm forced to, right?
Figure this
Ironman
out.
Forces you to wear a swim cap. So is that what they call it? Is a swim cap? Or it doesn't have a cool name?
Swim cap, yeah. Training's going good for me, doing good. I actually had a coaching call today. It's just so cool to know that with the CTS coaching team that I'm on, we had podium players at Western States 100. And that is I just know that I'm in the right hands with this team right now. It's so, so cool to be on this team with podium players that, got in Western States 100. I'm just so stoked.
And I'm a data fiend, and Wendy shared today that actually the data from people that stood on the podium at Western States
ended up in my coach's hands.
Ended up in your coach's hands for comparison, right? They don't share who or what, but it helps her guide you in the direction you want to go with your identity as a runner.
Yeah.
And she asked you an identity question as to who you want to become.
Yeah, I got really shy about that.
What was that question?
She asked me, do you want to run Western States 100? And I got really shy about that. In fact, I looked down because I couldn't even look at her in the eye because in my heart was like, yeah, man, I'd love to run Western States 100. But in my being, I was like, I'm in an identity loop right now that I don't have the confidence that I could actually do that. I don't have the confidence in my body could pull it off with the constraints that I've been dealing with a hamstring and the knees and my foot pains. And I'm just not sure how I'd pull that off. And then there's a sequence on having to actually get in a lotto for Western States 100. Every year you have a sequence up to get that, and then the training behind that. So there's definitely some self-doubt. I've got to break that loop in case that it's a possibility. You might do it one time in your life, and who knows if I would only make it halfway, but at least you are out there trying.
Anything's possible, right? And that's why the saying anything's possible actually comes up. In fact, that's this year's Ironman's theme, right? Anything is possible.
Anything's possible.
But being possible and being reality are miles apart sometimes. but often it's actually much closer than you think.
Well, before we get into this, I want to invite you to join us as a business owner, as a creator, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a YouTuber, as a podcaster into our community, because Dave and I break all this stuff down actually in live sessions every month for free for you. You can pick our brains during the time and share with us what you're getting stuck on. We're really focused on building organic ads, paid ads. David's like an expert in that area. I'm on the side of connecting with audience through communication like Pixar does, hitting every little tweak in there. David's really good at that too with advertising. We talk about how to really scale your content, not scale it in a way like, hey, I need 50 posts a day, but scaling your workflows so that it's organizable, where you're coming into it and you're not in Disasterville and you're trying to figure out what happened from last week Friday, and now it's your first week Monday, and you're gonna waste 2 hours just searching back to where you were last week Friday. And we have systems for that to help you get in place. So we want to invite you into our community. It's called Cadence Creator, and it's on the school platform, and we'll put a link in the show notes to invite you in. So yeah, we'd love to have you part and join some of our live sessions. Just RSVPN. We'd love to have you there. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive in, Dave, because you know what is happening to us right now every day. We're constantly rewiring ourselves, rewiring our old identity, and it's super easy to not do that. In fact, this episode came to me from yesterday with a conversation I was having with a dear friend, and he was talking about he's just not getting better and some changes. And I was thinking to myself, I think my friend may be in an identity loop. In fact, I have two friends right now that are going through some hard times, and I think there's an identity loop that just needs a little tweak. So let's break this down, because it's not bad that you're in it. It's just that you need to be conscious of it so that you can learn how to like make the change.
And the thing is, you will always be in one for your entire life, no matter who you are or where you're at.
True.
It's just the track you choose to play on, right? And so, if you feel you need to be on a different track, you want to be on a different track, you choose a different track, it's instantaneous, right? As soon as you make that decision. And because, the thing is, everybody believes what they see, but they just don't believe they can see it differently. And that's why we stay stuck.
Yep.
Stuck in where we're at.
Well, we talk a lot about mindset here, and but identity is something that it's actually rooted in. And I've mentioned him before, but David Baer calls it the identity loop, and that's why I also call it the identity loop here. This is the invisible cycle where your beliefs create your thoughts shape your emotions, and those emotions drive your behavior, and that behavior reinforces the original belief. So now you can see the loop is happening, right?
But it's so much more complicated than that.
It is.
Because when we believe something, we believe that it's true, right?
True.
And so the first thing you have to sort of catch yourself and say is belief does not equal truth. It's just your lens, the way you're choosing to look through things at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So if your belief is, I always mess this up, every thought, then the feeling and action you take is going to prove that you'd actually do, that you messed that up. Not because it is true, it's because your brain is wired to stay consistent with what you've already told it. So if you're like, hey, I messed this up, yeah, you're probably going to mess this up.
And so this is where I'm going to get sidetracked.
Yeah, that's okay.
So this goes back to my dad's work, right? And just for some background, he graduated as a psychologist, clinical psychologist, back in the Freud days, right? Back in the days of the Rorschach cards and primal scream and, those sorts of things. And he eventually worked his way into a position that was very modern from a psychology perspective, but it had a lot of Eastern philosophy built into it, right? He was a Buddhist, really, at his core, even though he wouldn't call himself that. He was a Buddhist. And here's the interesting thing, right? Like, he would always ask people, like, when you say, I messed that up, right? He would always ask people, how does that serve you? And people would get really angry, like, doesn't
Defensive.
serve me. I messed up. Or like, no, but actually, how does the story of you messing up serve you in your life? And he would ask that of everybody, like people that were addicted. How does your story of addiction serve you, right? And they just get pissed off. They're like, it's there's nothing I can do about it. And like, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
You're broke. How does the story of not having money serve you? And once you get to that level, he had a process called the recovery process, where you'd have to actually get to the level of understanding how your story serves you, and then you build yourself back up in a direction that you wanted to be. And the funny thing is, we talk about this, but we also live it, right? And it's such a difficult, it's so embedded in our DNA, right? It's not as easy as just snapping your finger, and yet it is.
I remember a story I'd love to share is how I ended up in Hawaii. And the story kind of goes like this. I was working doing landscaping, and I really wanted my life to be something different. I ended up getting a job with Russell Brunson at .com Secrets back in the day. Worked for Russell until things changed with his company, and then I felt lost. And I really thought I was starting to create a new identity with Russell and marketing back in those days. And then I kind of lost that identity, and I'm like, oh man, okay, now I'm from landscaper to marketing, and now I don't know who I am. Well, my heart has always loved the islands. When I was a kid, I was traveling to islands like New Zealand and Fiji and other islands, and Hawaii too. And Hawaii has always been on my mind to live full time. But it was like one of those things that was like, it was just out there. So then I got wrapped up in some relationship world that really ended poorly, and I really lost myself. And I know from my past that one of the things that can really help change, when I talk about like playing small, it means you're kind of playing small in your own brain because you're living in the small space and you're conditioned to be in a place that you're familiar with all your comfort zones, and you don't see anything else outside that box. You know it's there, but you just don't take action on it. And for me, one of the things I know about myself that I really do well growing when I leave my comfort zone. I do well when I just put myself in the unknown. And I booked a one-way ticket to Hawaii and flew over there and started figuring it out. And I was figuring out who the new Wendy was going to be, who the new version of me was going to be. What did I want to actually do? Now, previously, I had also had a lot of adventure guiding background back in the days. For like 10 years, I was an adventure guide. And so now I'm in Hawaii and I'm trying to figure out this new identity of me. And it took a while. Sometimes it's not overnight, but I started going through the process. And when you can take yourself through the process, you start changing the loop. When I said it's rewirable, it is rewirable. You're now becoming a different you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, completely. You glazed over the relationship part a little bit, but that's interesting because it sort of takes me back to some past things in my life. And we've all heard the cliche sort of, you are who you think you are, right? And we accept that as the truth. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of times in life, we are who someone else thinks we are.
Definitely.
And if you've ever been in a crappy relationship and you're questioning yourself, like, why am I here? There's a big part of the answer, because you are who someone else thinks you are, and you're playing that role.
Or you're playing for exactly who they think you should be. And even though they may be out of your life and you're no longer with them, you're still playing the role. And
absolutely.
You're lost.
And it's hard coded in your in your hard drive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the guilt sets in. Like, oh, I should do that, but then they told me I couldn't do that. So now that I can't do that. You see what I mean? Now it's like looping.
Right.
And then you're stuck in the same spot.
If they're really complicated, right, then every time you fall in alignment with who they think you should be, they move the goalposts in some other direction.
Right, yeah.
And they always keep you guessing.
But the hard part...
it takes a lot, right? So I was in a long-term marriage with a person that, good person, nothing wrong with them. It's just what we wanted out of life was extremely incongruent. Like, it was obvious I was going that direction and they were just, comfortable here. But, I conformed to that, who they wanted me to be. And a lot of other complicated stories, right? I didn't want to be a failure and a loser and divorced and, all of those things, until I finally went through the process of deciding to grow my own mind and change who I became. And then once you do that, it becomes instantaneous that you can no longer stay in your situation, whatever it is, relationship, addiction, brokenness, whatever it is, once that comes up, you're like, oh, yeah, shit's got to change.
Well, definitely. I want to share something about this because it's easy for you if you're listening to us right now, you're like, okay, yeah, I want this thing. But you have to, it's more than willpower. You have to create a new belief system about yourself, because let's be real, beliefs don't change just because you want them to. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start believing that, and then done, I'm good.
However, that's exactly the way manifesting works, and manifesting's huge in the world right now. There's all kinds of people that are manifestation gurus, and the truth about that woo-woo is it works, and there's a reason it works, because it allows you to believe an alternate reality could be true for you, and the second you start to believe it, it starts to occur.
Well, let me add to that. When you build on manifestation and you get evidence, the evidence is what starts tweaking you, because now that you believe something changed. You manifested something. It could be a small thing, like let's say a miracle that you made at home today from your work. You manifested hey, I'm going to be safe today. I just want to make it home my drive today. That's evidence. Now you believe that. Now that new manifestation is actually now changing that belief. You know what I mean? So that starts the identity upgrades when you have evidence, right? These are the micro shifts in how you see yourself, how you speak to yourself, how you show up to yourself. That's actually what we're going to break down in the next section, because I don't want to overwhelm you. And this is the lesson number one. It's identifying your belief. And I've been, you've got to say to yourself or write it down. What's one belief I've been repeating that's keeping me stuck? What's one action that I could take today that challenges my belief, even if it's just a tiny little action? Maybe it's a health. You want to become more healthy and you want to just take a micro step to go take a walk around the block. Maybe it's buying different food at the grocery store, for your health reset. Maybe it's hiring a coach. Maybe it's hiring someone at the gym to help you. Maybe it's hiring a physical therapist to get you started. Maybe it's starting to do research on YouTube or downloading an app for your health. Maybe it's researching that and then hitting the buy now to actually lock you into a plan. These are the micro shifts, because when you believe something and you start seeing the tweak, man, that's exactly what starts breaking things down. That's what starts changing things.
And you get to part of the core of your identity, and that is it's become a habit. And as a habit, habits are hardwired, right? So that it makes it easier for you to execute, because as humans, from a neurological standpoint, it takes a lot of energy to do any one thing. So the body recognizes the moment you're doing something on a repetitive basis. And they say, neurons that fire together wire together. And they say that for a reason. That's because it creates those neuron loops, so that it's not as energy intensive to do that. And we look at people that are obese, and you're like, why don't you just decide to lose weight? And I really feel deeply for those people, because I understand it's not just a decision. Where they're at is so hardwired that it takes a monumental effort to overcome and make that next step. But the second they do, you see them, 6 months later, and looks like you lost 100 pounds. And they're like, no, 150, and it can happen that quickly.
Well, this is what we're going to talk about, is how to actually shift this, because there are 4 identity upgrades, and this is for everyone who's ready to evolve. It's not just for entrepreneurs, creators, business owners, athletes. These are upgrades for anyone who's tired of waking up with the same results and who is ready to start showing up differently. And your identity doesn't shift with big declarations like Dave's talking about. It shifts when you start responding differently in small micro ways every day, moments that's used to run you. And here's how to flip the script one at a time. And I wrote down 4, Dave, and I wanted to start with number 1 if we could.
Okay. I just want to say one thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Big declarations actually work, especially if you don't do them in private. If you start to declare things like the outcome that you're going to have publicly, there's a shift that happens.
That's true.
Emotionally in your DNA, because we're built to please at a certain level, right? Some people are super people pleasers, but we're all pleasers at some level. And when you tell somebody you're going to do something, like, you just don't want to go back on your words. So that does help. Put it on your Facebook. Tell all your friends.
This is what I'm going to do. So number 1, I call it from passive reactor to intentional mover. So old loop, life happens to you. You're constantly reacting. The phone rings. You answer. 2 hours later has gone by. You drop everything mid-task because you're overwhelmed and you're feeling like, hey, you know what? Today, right now, I need a Starbucks. I need an iced tea. I'm going to run out. You know what? I'm out of milk. I'm just going to run to the store real quickly and I'll be right back. And then all of a sudden, 3 hours later, go by. You let your to-do list in your inbox run the entire day before you've ever thought about yourself. Now, the upgraded loop here is you pause, you choose, you move with intention, deliberate, even if it's just one clear decision. Okay, so now you're anchoring it. So you start the day with one thing you choose before the world chooses you. Okay, so you practice saying, I'll get back to you, instead of jumping into every ask. That's power. When you can say, thank you, I'll get back to you on that. I don't need to figure that out right now, but I'll get back to you on that when it's on my time. That's the power of being upgraded. That's what choosing into the motivator of you. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah, it does. It do, delegate, or delete, right? And we're set to do, right? It's this like forward or reverse. But there's some other gears out there depending on the vehicle in your mind that you want to drive, and delegate or just delete. Like, there's some shit that comes in, I'm like, no, delete.
Not right now.
I don't even need to answer it. Like, it's
right. So
not an ask that I need to even pay attention to.
So go from a passive reactor, react, to an intentional mover. Give yourself some time. Make the choice of what you want to do. Let people know you can get back to them. Don't need to react right away. Doesn't need to be right the second. Do you first. Then make space if you're going to take the next time to make that happen. I had a situation where I was reviewing some accounts and I was working with a couple of people that needed some answers. I literally put them on pause for 3 weeks. And I said, I don't have time to make a decision right now, but I will get back to you in 3 weeks. And I just reached out back to them today. And I just said, I apologize for, my time. That way wasn't able to get back to you right away, but I'm circling back and here's my questions. It's okay. It's not in a rush unless you have a rush situation, but then, do it at the timely, whatever that is for you. Okay. Moving on to number 2, from self-doubt to self-trust. Now here's the old loop. You overthink everything. You second guess a text for like 20 minutes. You replay a conversation from yesterday, wondering if it sounded too much. You think about trying something new and then spiral into, what if I'm not good enough? Does this sound familiar? The new upgrade thought mind is you lead with self-trust. Even when you're unsure, you back yourself anyway. You anchor it. And that's what I love about the upgraded self is the anchoring part. You anchor that sucker. Say, I've got me. Out loud. I can handle this. I can control this. I can do what I can to make this whatever it is. Like you mean it. Like keep a list of things that you've survived or figured out. It's longer than you think because you know what? We just talked about evidence. When you have that evidence, you're capable of figuring it out. You're capable of doing it. You just need the evidence to prove it to yourself, to have the belief, to upgrade to yourself.
So it's sort of the identity is a program,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And if you let the program just run wild, run its routine, it's always going to continue to do the same thing and you're going to get the same results. But if you sort of think of it like even just a remote control, right? One of those programmable remote controls,
yes.
All of a sudden with a couple of clicks of buttons, you start to get a different picture that comes into view. And you get a completely different outcome.
Well, it's like creating your custom GPT.
Yeah.
You want a different outcome. You create a custom GPT. When you create the custom GPT, you get a different output than just ChatGPT. So I love that. Okay, let's move on to number 3. From overdoing to aligned living. From overdoing to aligned living. So the old loop is you say yes before checking in. Like if somebody calls me to say, hey, do you guys want to go to dinner tonight? I say, yes. Yes, I don't even ask Dave. I don't say yes. Yeah, absolutely. We're going. You're exhausted, but you RSVP yes because you didn't want to disappoint. Okay. You stay up late finishing a task that you didn't need to say yes to in the first place. You fill your schedule so full that there's no room for your own life. That sounds really familiar to Dave and I. We know what that takes. Now, the upgraded loop is this. Upgraded version of you. You pause before you commit. You ask, does this feel true to who I am becoming? Anchor it. Say no to one thing, guilt-free. Don't have to carry the guilt. Just say no, doesn't work for me. Add 15 minutes of white space to your day. Zero agenda. Sit there. Do nothing. Just breathe. This is the upgraded you. The upgraded identity you're creating.
To boil it down, the identity is a decision, right?
Right.
And,
yes.
I like that you said no, right? I heard something really cool that goes on between Jesse Itzler and Cody Sanchez, right?
Yeah.
They made an agreement that they would tell each other when they said no to something big. And so they would like get an opportunity, a deal, and they would text it to each other with glee, like, yeah, I said no to this thing.
That's awesome.
$5 million, no.
I love it.
Because it's not in alignment with where they're headed.
I love that.
We should do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Or someone out there. Maybe someone out there wants to be my nobody.
Yes.
We need a nobody. Like that. The nobody.
Nobody.
Be a nobody. Wait. I got to go and I got to register nobody.ai.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Number 4, from seeking permission to owning your own space. What that means is the old loop is you shrink to stay safe. Think about it. You're scared to do the thing that you want because you're staying safe in the comfort zone. So when I wanted to move to Hawaii, I was staying in a loop. It took me a long time to actually make the move, right? You're muting yourself on Zoom, even when you have something valuable to say. How many of us have muted ourselves on Zoom? Or when they say, raise your hand, or like, show your picture, I want to see you. And you're like, oh, heck no, nope, I'm not going to show that. Leave me a comment. You're like, oh, I ain't going to write anything. No way, I'm not going to write anything. You're shrinking to stay safe. Now, here's another one. You wait for someone else to make the first move, decision, or compliment. You filter your opinions to avoid conflict, even when it matters to you. The upgraded identity is you show up like you belong because you do. When Dave and I landed at Western States 100, we did our best to show up like we were meant to be there. We didn't know, I didn't say anybody. We knew people virtually through the lens, but we didn't know like handshake them. We knew a couple of people that were there that we wanted to meet, but we showed up. The story of me walking into the Women's Trail Fest, not even knowing who these people are, that was just so funny. And it was so raw and real, and calling the commentator the wrong name. I showed up, I was vulnerable, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they were like, hey, do you know where you're at? No, we don't. Do you know what's going on? Not really. We don't. We don't even know where this thing starts. That was great. So, you need to anchor it when you come back into changing this identity. So speak up once today, where you normally hold back. Walk taller. Make eye contact. Say your name with confidence. Give someone a compliment. Start with the body, and then your brain follows along. Those are the 4 shifts. And these upgrades aren't really about becoming like somebody else. They're about returning to the version of you who already exists. But underneath the noise, the people pleasing and the patterns, all you have to do is prove it to your brain. Once you prove it to your brain, it's like one moment at a time, you start to make the upgrades to your identity. It sounds so simple on paper, right?
And it does. And there's a really complicated underlying thing in number 3, the thing you just described, and that is 3-letter word, ego, right? And
True.
Ego, we're not even going to touch that because it is so friggin' complicated. Even the best of us have a hard time understanding. But the ego both protects you, right? So it makes you withdraw, or sometimes you can move forward, right? And your ego propels you to like engage. And you have to find some
middle
ground. And you've got to ask yourself, we've all seen people that are on both ends of that, like the person that's always in the corner, never says anything, or the egomaniac who's always inserting themselves into everything. those people are like, how does that story serve you? But try and find some happy middle ground there. I think all of us could be a little more overt in our egos.
True.
And most of the time that's actually interpreted by other people as charisma, which is something that if you're trying to do something in the public eye, business, sports, anything, a little charisma goes a long way.
It does, but you can also be overly charismatic, and it can be taken the wrong way, where you look like you know what. So you don't want to do that. I have had that happen to myself because I get so excited about something that I think my ego kicks in because I am vulnerable and I'm afraid. And so my ego kicks in because I'm trying to match that other person's where their expertise is at. But then I've like over delivered on my charisma where I just need to kind of like back off and be myself, and I'm aware of that. I would say I'm aware of that. So the action prompt here for this is number 2 overall, is identify the old loop that's been running your day, like we talked about in number 4, or done number 1. Pick one upgrade out of the 4 we just talked about, and then take one real world action that says that's not who I am anymore, and then repeat it. Repeat it again, repeat it again, repeat it the next day, and that's how it rewires when you get in motion to do it. I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be this great podcaster, and we just jumped in. Literally, I started on my back porch holding a mic and put a camera on me with a laptop with sound behind me. There was no studio.
First episode.
You'll see it. But the thing of it was, I was rewiring my brain to say, hey, I want to do podcasting. I love being here with you as the listeners. I love my community. And here we are. So I was taking the steps to create the identity, to rewire me, but I have to put it in motion and practice, right? I'd never be out there running what I'm running today when I'm saying, hey, I'm going out for 4.5 mile run or 4.5 hour run today without having a coach that's coaching me step by step. So let's get in number 3, Dave. Here's how you lock it in and rewire your identity in 5 seconds. Let's say you identified the belief, okay? You've picked your identity upgrade, how you're going to do it. You know the action your future self would take, but at the exact moment that you're going to make the decision, the change, you hesitate. The old loop comes back and you pull back. And this is where, Dave, I love what Mel Robbins talks about when she talks about her go-to tool, the 5-second rule. What is this 5-second rule? The 5-second rule is, if you have an instinct on a goal that you want to take action on, you must move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. So you have a countdown. You go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. That is the 5-second rule. Let me read that again. What is the 5-second rule? If you have an instinct to act on a goal, you must move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. And then you do the countdown. So you have to get up, you have to say it, you have to send it, you have to post it, you have to walk out the door, you have to take the action. So if you don't, what happens is fear comes in, doubt comes in, and you start the conditioning process of the negativity, and then the loop continues to cycle. Now, I want to talk about a little bit of science drop here, why this works. Your brain is wired for safety, not success. So hesitation is activated through the prefrontal cortex. That is the part that's responsible for overthinking and fear, is the prefrontal cortex right here. But counting backwards actually interrupts that cycle. And like a pattern break, a trigger action from your premotor cortex, moving you into motion. You're actually moving. So you're literally shifting your brain out of fear and into power. So I love this, Dave, because so many times I have done something and I'm not sure if I can do it. I remember years ago when I was mountain bike racing and I needed to learn how to ride down this really steep section on the trail. And every time I get to this section, I would literally get off my bike and walk it. It was just super steep and it was super short, but I did not have the confidence. I came home and this is like before I knew all of this, and I listened to music and I would envision myself doing it, breathing and getting to the place. And then I went up there and I did it. Another one is we just had our speaking event a few weeks ago and I was on stage and you were talking on the other side of the stage and I knew that my long story was coming up. And as you were winding down yours and I knew that section, I took a big breath in and a big breath out and I just calmed myself down and said, I got this. I'm capable of this. here we go. And as soon as you ended, I jumped in and we did our walking pattern where you walk behind me, I walk in front of you, and I delivered. And it was there. It was like magic because I knew that it was 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I was not going to stand there and be deer in a headlight, you know?
Yeah. So I think that's like the wrap on this episode.
Yeah, it
because
is. Yeah.
Action changes identity, right? And just like you said, when you take that action, you have to tell yourself the story, this is what I want, because the story is what locks it in. And then that automatically changes the channel on that neural groove that you have to do something different, that other pattern that has become a habit. So yeah, take that uncertain, unfamiliar action and do it quickly. I use that trick running, right? Because sometimes I want to walk and then sometimes I have to walk. And so I walk, but I say I'm going to walk for 5 deep breaths and then I run again.
You go
5, and then sometimes I'll really wait a long time for the next one. 4. but at the end, right, like it's time to take action again.
Well, that's the 5-second rule. And the person you're becoming isn't waiting for clarity, my friend. They're waiting for you to move. That's you. So use the 5-second rule to take action before your old identity talks you out of it, really. So this is your action prompt for today. It's about talking about taking action. Pick one identity aligned action. Whatever it is, don't overthink it. Do the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then go do the action. If you think that you want to be healthier, you want to move, you want to play piano, you want to play guitar, you want to learn AI, you want to get into our community, take the action to do it. Don't delay. Time is now. We are all living with one of the largest, greatest assets we have. And if you're listening to that, you are alive and breathing and living with a heartbeat, my friend. So do what you want that's on your heart, that is good and that serves life and this world and this community and your family and your friends, because that's what matters. Don't put your dreams in delay any longer. Go out and do it. That's the wrap of today's episode of Embers Rising. Let this be your reminder, my friend. You are not your past. You are not your patterns. You are what you choose to believe, and you can prove it today to yourself. One micro step at a time. Your identity is not set in stone, and don't let anybody else tell you that it is. Most importantly, it's sculpting real time by how you think, how you speak, how you move, and how you lead. So write it out, my friend. Write out, what belief are you letting go of? What identity are you embracing and stepping into? What is one move that you're going to make today to back it up? And if you know that, share it with us. Tag us on Embers Rising Podcast on YouTube. Share it with me on Instagram at Wendy J, MS Wendy J. Check it out. We want to see it. We want to celebrate it with you and share it with our community. That's most important. And, hey, hit us up. If you want to know what Dave and I are working on, we're always working on changing an identity for ourselves. We're always even helping us, do the pinky check friend, like, hey, brother, let's help each other make this change.
I'll add one other thing. And this is something my dad made every one of his patients do.
Yes.
And they all wanted to make the change, right? And I think my dad has probably been responsible for losing more weight than Richard Simmons ever will be.
Yes.
And it's for one reason. He made them, instead of write down what they wanted or write down what wasn't working, they would just observe. He would have them create a journal of how what they were doing served them, right?
I love that.
And he wasn't like, you got to stop eating, you got to exercise, any of that. Just observe from like a conscious level, right? Like, why are you eating the ice cream? Well, I'm emotional. Well, why are you, having a third helping at dinner? Well, because it tastes good. Like all of those things. And at the end of the journaling process, a lot of his clients would end up holding it up and saying, literally, they would hold it up and they would say, I'm crazy. Like, this is crazy talk.
That's
the
amazing.
way I am thinking about life is crazy. And they wouldn't need to write down the change they wanted. They would just start moving there, right?
There you go.
I got to get out of the craziness.
So there's a second option for you. If you don't want to write it down, start observing yourself today and write down what you're observing without making a decision. It doesn't have to be positive, negative. Just observe it and write it down. Just observe it and then come back to it and look at it.
All right. I'm going to go write down my journal now.
All right, my friend. Thanks for listening. We're gonna land this plane right now. Keep pushing boundaries. Keep chasing big dreams, and most importantly, keep rising. And like we always say, big hugs, lots of love. Aloha.
Aloha.